Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to discuss about virtual machine automation. Before I move forward, I would like to take a pause and thank you each one of you for subscribing to the channel. Last week my channel has crossed a milestone of 5000 subscribers and that has been only possible with your support. Thank you always for supporting, guiding and providing the feedbacks on the channel. Having said that, let's get started. Okay, so virtual machine automation. This is the agenda what we are going to cover today. That we are going to start with what are virtual machine. We are going to look at what are the challenges which we get with image and the OCR automation. We are going to introduce you to something which is called the computer vision. What are the activities available? What is CV screen scope and how can I actually configure the CV screen scope? Okay. Before I move forward, I quickly want to show you how exactly the screen scope works so that you get an interest over it. Okay. I have this image which I have taken from internet, which is form image, right? As you can see, this is a plain image of a form. I have this remote desktop which is open in front of me and I have opened a website which is called a Yahoo Finance. Let me go back to my UiPath Studio and you could see that if I have a normal click activity, I simply click on indicate on screen. And when I am trying to point it over the remote desktop, you could notice that it is not able to identify the elements on the screen because this thing is a kind of image, right? RDP is an image which is thrown to us. Similarly, if I again go back and take an activity which is called a type into activity, okay, and let's say I want to type something on this one, right? So UiPath is also not able to identify the elements because this is an image, right? Now I have two CV activities which are available here. So let me quickly show you how does the CV works. Now again I go and click on indicate on scope maybe, okay, and now the VD is the same and you could notice that now with the help of CV I am actually able to identify the elements on the screen, right? Apart from the remote machine I have this image, right? So now let me quickly go here and click on indicate, and now if you see here, UiPath CV screen scope activity is able to identify the text boxes in an image as well. Now, this can be a scanned PDF or a application which is not providing you the selectors, right? So this is how powerful is CV screen scope, and this is what we are going to cover today. Let us first start by looking at what exactly is a virtual machine. So virtual machines are the machine where memory or the storage is borrowed from a physical host or a computer. So I have a physical host, a server which is having a lot of memory, a lot of space. From that host, I actually go and create small VMs, right? I create virtual machine 1, virtual machine 2, virtual machine 3. Now, whenever a client is logging to the virtual machine, they are not actually logging to the actual machine, but to an image of the virtual machine, right? Which means that I am just logging in via a browser, via Citrix, and I am getting a application available to me. There is nothing which is installed on my local computer. Everything is coming virtually to me. Now all the setups, all the installation, all the softwares are installed on the remote machine, and as a user I am just accessing it with the help of the virtual machine, right? So that is what a virtual machine is. On the right hand side you can actually see that how does a virtual machine setup look like. You have a host, and then from the host there are small VMs which are created. Moving forward, now one way of automating the virtual machine is using the image and the OCR technology. Let me quickly show it to you how exactly can I use the image and the OCR. I am back in my UiPath Studio. I have this remote desktop connection, which you can see I have made an RDP to this one, and inside the remote machine I have opened a website which is called a Yahoo Finance. Now let us say I want to automate this thing and I simply want to click on this home button, right? One way of doing this is using a image automation, right? So let me quickly show it to you how exactly does a image automation look like. Okay, so I go here and I create a sequence for image automation. Okay, now whenever we are doing a image automation, I have some activities such as click image, right? I go here and drag and drop from the image UI automation, drag and drop something which is called a click image, right? Now it is asking me to indicate on the screen, which means I have to indicate this element on the screen. Okay, so I go here and I say indicate image on screen, and I simply click on, let's say, this one, like this, mail. Okay, now if you go to the properties, you would notice that the image activity has actually something which is called the image, right? It has taken the accuracy, which is 0.8. It is ranging from 0 to 1. 0 means not matching and 1s mean exact 1 to 1 match, right? The default value is 0.8, or you can say 80% matching. Okay, which button I want to click? I want to use the left button. If you further expand the target, you would notice that there is a selector, but that selector is not for the actual element. However, that selector is for the entire RDP, which is this window. Inside this window, UiPath is trying to find this image. Okay, and these are the other properties of the click activities, right? Normal UI properties. Now, this is what I am trying to do a image automation. So let us try to see if my UiPath robot is able to work with the image automation or not. I go here and I simply say run the file. We'll just wait for the robot to fire up as of now, and you could see that the automation was triggered and it is clicking on the mail.yahoo.com. That means the robot was successfully able to click on the mail button. So that was just simply doing a image automation on the RDP. Whenever we are doing the RDP automation, it is not always restricted to clicking or typing. Sometimes we have to extract the data out of the remote desktop also, right? So for example, if you are looking on the screen, I have something which is called a tabular grid on the Yahoo Finance, and let's say during my automation I want to extract this thing. Now one obvious way is to use the OCR technologies, right? So let me go to the screen scraping here, and this is my screen scraping wizard. Okay, so this I have open in front of here. Now UiPath has the native full text and the OCR. In case you don't understand this, I have a dedicated video explaining the native full text and the OCR. You could actually go and you could find that how each one of those look like, right? So as of now, RDP is giving me an image, so I need to stick to the OCR. I simply select the OCR and I click on scraping, and you could see that UiPath was able to give me the data whatever was visible on the screen with the help of an OCR engine, right? Now as a developer, I need to write a separate code to actually convert this thing to a data table to get the extract and the meaningful information. Chances are there that OCR might have missed some of the data. In case, for example, let's say if I just scroll down, there are more data which was available, right? So OCR would be able to only get the data which is visible on the screen. This is one of the way where you can actually go and automate the remote desktop with the help of image automation or with the help of OCR technology such as this one. I use get OCR text and I was using the Microsoft OCR. Now there is a challenge with the image and the OCR activities. Let us try to see those challenges, right? The first one, even a minor change in the UI would break the automation. Even if there is a small UI change in the Yahoo Finance, let's say Yahoo Finance decide to move the button from one location to other location, right? The image matching algorithm is prone to error. For example, there is a slight bit of change in the background color, font, size, or the aspect, your automation is going to break. Whenever I am doing the image automation, the resolution of the virtual machines plays an important role. Some day I am getting a good resolution, some fine day I am not getting a proper response, or the RDP connection is not as strong as it should be, my automation would break. Which simply means, for example, this I am telling UiPath that you have to go to this RDP and you have to select for this one which is called the mail. So UiPath is actually trying to go and search for this image which is written in this font with this background color. Tomorrow Yahoo Finance updates this color from blue to something, let's say red, blue or green. what would happen? My automation is going to break because it is going to look for the image, right? Even if I have changed this accuracy and all, so it have a very good chances of getting break, right? And OCR has challenges such as the output from the OCR is coming in a plain text, right? So I need to write a lot of code to actually get the meaningful data out of this one. So these were one of the ways which we can do the RDP, and these are the challenges which we get with the help of image and the OCR. Now that we understand that what are the challenges with the image and the OCR based automation, it's time to introduce you to something which is called the UiPath computer vision. Computer vision is a feature which allows our robots to see the screen and visually identify the elements. Now the question would be, what exactly computer vision is doing, right? It is an algorithm that enables the human-like recognition of user interface. The way a human is able to identify the elements on the screen, the same thing is done by a computer vision with a mix of technologies such as artificial intelligence, OCR technology, text fuzzy matching, and the anchor system, which is tied all together into a single bulk, which is called the computer vision, right? So it is a mix of AI, OCR, text fuzzy, anchoring, everything, right? It does not require any underlying property of the application. We do not need to install anything on the target application. It does not require any special accesses, right? It uses the aspects and the relationships of the various element, which we are going to see that how exactly can we get and interact with the data. It is useful to build the applications such as unsupported frameworks such as Silverlight. I have an application which is working on Flash, or I am working on something which is called VMs where I am getting an image, right? All of these places we could use something which is called a computer vision. These are some of the activities which are available in UiPath to work with the computer vision. The first one is called the CV scope, CV click, element exist, CV get text, highlight, hover, type into, and the refresh, right? Now, before we get started with the CV activities, we first need to configure and work on a scope. For example, if you have an experience in the Excel automation, to do the Excel automation, we require something which is called an Excel application scope. Similarly, to use the CV activity, we require something which is called a CV screen scope. Okay, I'll come to this PPT in a while. Let me first come back to my UiPath Studio. I'll go here, I'll create a new sequence and I'll call this sequence as CV scope. I'll hit create. Okay. First of all, to get the CV scope, if you are looking on my project, I do not have any special dependencies added because CV scope is now part of the UI automation package, right? UiPath.vision, this is already included here. I am in the 21.10 version, so I do not need to specify anything, right? So CV scope would be available if you have UiPath.UI automation activities available. Now let me go back to the activities, and if I simply type here CV, okay, so you would see that inside the available computer vision I have these activities which are available. Okay, to use all of this activity you require the first thing which is called the CV screen scope. Drag and drop the CV screen scope here, and this would be a screen scope for you where your all the automation is going to lie, right? Let me go back to the properties and I'll show you that how actually you can configure this one. Okay, so first thing, continue on error, delay before, display name, these are all the common UI properties of all the UI elements. In case you are not aware of this, I have a dedicated video explaining all of this, everything about this, right? I have put the link in the description so you can refer that, right? Target element selector, everything this comes from the traditional UI elements, right? In terms of the CV scope, we have three properties which are important: the API key, the URL, and the local server. The first question is, where do I get this API key from, right? To get the API key, you have to come to cloud.uipath.com. Inside this, click on these three dots. You would have the admin section here. Click on this admin. I am using the UiPath community edition, so this setup would be exactly the same for you. Once you are in the admin page, you have to navigate to licenses. Inside the licenses, click on this tab which says robot and services. Once you are in the robot and services, you would see a section which says the computer vision, and here at the bottom you have something which is called the API key. So to work with the computer vision, all you need to do is just click on this copy button and it will copy the key for you. Once you have the key, copy that key and take it back to your UiPath Studio. This API key is a string, so you need to put it in the double quotes, right? So I hope now you have got the API key. When it comes to the URL, by default the URL is cv.uipath.com, right? So https://cv.uipath.com, that is the URL you need to specify. So now I hope you have the API key and you have the URL. So these are the two things which you require initially to get started with the CV activity. Coming back to my presentation, right? So the CV screen scope have three important properties as I told. URL which we need to get, and it is set to cv.uipath.com. This is used in case I am using the cloud version of UiPath, right? And the API key, we have just shown that how exactly we can use the API key. So why exactly we require API key? This API key is used for authenticating the computer vision server. This field supports the string and the string variable, so that means the key has to be put in the double quotes, right? And whenever I put, it will be available, applicable to all the activities which we put in this scope, right? There is one property which was called the use local server, right? If I check this local server, right, this means that the UiPath computer vision local server package needs to be installed, right? If you have this property available, then you need to tick on this local server, right? So if check, the local server will be used for the analysis, which means that now it will not use the cloud one, it is going to use the local server. If you have the CV installed on a locally server, you need to tick this one, otherwise you can leave it to the default settings, right? Now let us talk a little bit about the screen scope. What exactly is the screen scope? So the CV screen scope actually initializes the computer vision neural network, performing an analysis on the indicated workflow, right? So this activity will enable you to select and identify the element on the screen. So screen scope will actually go and first analyze the screen whichever you have pointed out. It is a combination of different technologies which we have already mentioned. The default OCR engine which comes in the CV scope is the UiPath screen OCR. You always has an option to change this OCR to some other OCR. This engine can be changed manually by dragging and dropping the OCR engine of your choice. So with the help of the CV screen scope, UiPath would be able to identify the elements on the screen. Okay, now as we have mentioned, we require the URL and the API key. The URL is https cv.uipath.com. And to get the API key, you have to navigate to the cloud platform of UiPath, admin, licenses, robot and services, and you would see something which is called the computer vision key. Just copy this one and you would have the API key with you. Okay, so now I am back in my UiPath Studio and I hope now you have the API key, URL, CV screen scope ready with you. Now, what is the next thing? This is my remote desktop. Okay, if I click on here, you could see that this is my remote desktop, right? 161 something. Now if I first have to work on the screen scope, the first thing you have to do is indicate on the screen. As soon as I click on indicate on the screen, it is asking me that which are the scope you want to work, right? So I want to simply work on this one. So I click on the remote desktop. You can see that UiPath is telling me that it is detecting the screen elements, right? Once the detection is completed, you would see that there is an image which is available. If I simply double click on the image, you would notice that all the elements are highlighted in a light bluish color, right? Which indicates that UiPath would be able to perform operation on all of these elements, right? So now, once I have this scope identified, which means that now I am free to use any of this thing, right? Now for our example, let us try to do the same thing. We try to click on this mail button, right? Last time we used the image, so we have seen that it has got some challenges, right? Now if I go to the activities, in the computer vision, you have something which is called the click. Same like we have the normal click, we have this thing which is called the CV click. Drag and drop the CV click inside, right? So CV screen scope should contain the CV click. It won't work outside this one. Now, as soon as you drag and drop it here, it says indicate on the scope. It is telling me, you tell me inside this scope, where do you want to click? I simply say indicate on scope and I point it to the one where we want to do, right? See, and I simply click it on the mail button like this. That's it. My job is done, right? So that is how easy UiPath has made it. Again, it has got a screenshot for you. So if I simply click, you can see that it is trying to point this one. Whenever you drag and drop this thing, you have this option which says edit on screen. Let's say you are trying to run an automation and it is not working as expected. Now what are the other things which you can do? So this is a CV help menu which is populated here. It has something which is called the show elements. If I just click on this, it will actually going to tell you the same screenshot which we have seen, that what are the elements that CV actually is able to identify. But as of now, you would see that I have this option here and UiPath is able to identify this thing precisely. But let's say because of some reason it is not able to click. Now there is a concept of anchors. You can always specify anchors also during the CV. All you have to do is just click on any stable element, right? See, this one, this one, this one, this one. Okay, so let's say this finance home I want to take as an anchor. As soon as I click on this, UiPath is now saying that I have got this thing in green, which is telling me that this thing is now an anchor and this is your actual element, right? Anchor, this is actually the concept which has come from the UI elements. In case you don't understand what is anchor and how that actually works, I have a dedicated video explaining the anchor based activity. Have a look into it and that will help you to bit more understand this concept. Now, whenever we are doing the CV automation, you can add more than one anchor, right? It is not only restricted that you can have only one anchor. For a particular element, I can actually have more than one anchor, right? I can have three, right? But more the anchor you have, UiPath will take more time, because first it is going to find this one and this one, right? So ideally it works with one, but in case there is a situation where it is not working with one anchor, you are free to add more anchors like this, right? In case there are some duplicates elements which are coming on the screen and kind of a similar elements, UiPath will automatically add the anchors for you. You do not have to do anything, right? Most of the times the default anchor and the default setup would work, but in case there is a requirement, you always has an option to change this one. Now let's say I simply want to remove this anchor. I can click on this close button, right? Like this, okay? And this, I have removed both the anchors. I want to make this as an anchor, I want to make home as an anchor, or this button like this works, right? So that is how easy UiPath has made it for us. Once you are done with the changes, all you have to do is click on this button and hit OK, which says that accept the selection, and now you could see that now it is looking for an anchor. If you look at the properties, so these are the properties which are available. These are the common properties such as continue on error, delay before, delay after, and the display name. These are the common UI properties which a normal click activity also has. There is a special one which you will find which is called descriptor, which actually is the guy who is responsible for doing the automation with the descriptor, right? So my target is the mail and my anchor is the icon, right? So this was about the click activity. Now for example, I want to type something on this text box, right? So to type something on the screen, I would have to use something which is called a type into activity. So let me drag and drop the type into activity here like this. Okay, now if I simply try to click on indicate on scope, you would notice that it is actually able to identify all the elements again. That is because it is already inside the CV scope, right? I have to click here, and the thing which you have to notice here, that it has automatically created an anchor with the mobile tag. Okay, so whenever it is not very much sure, it will automatically go and create the anchors, right? Now what do you want to type? So let's say I simply want to type Microsoft there. Okay, and after I type Microsoft, I simply want to hit enter, right? So this you can again use the same concept. After typing the Microsoft, it is going to click on the enter button, right? So I save this automation. So this click I'll just disable for a moment, right? That you can also do with the help of Control plus D. So now I am telling UiPath that you get this scope and you simply type Microsoft and hit enter on this screen. Okay, so let me try to go here and I say run the file. We'll just wait for the automation to fire up, and you could see that the robot was able to type Microsoft and hit enter here, right? So that is how easy it is to use the type into activity. You might have noticed it might take some time as compared to the normal UI automation, right? Now if you see here, I told you that it has already created an anchor for you, right? So in case we are not comfortable with the anchor which UiPath has generated, I always has an option to change the anchor to, let's say, something this, right? So I'm not happy with this mobile and I want it to refer using this finance home, or maybe the logo, or maybe the home button, right? So I simply click on this one, finance home, and I click OK. Now what has happened, that UiPath has updated the anchor to the finance home, right? So by default it was working with the mobile, but sometime, let's say because of something, it is not working. We always has an option to update the anchor as well, right? So that is how you can actually use the CV screen scope. Let's have a quick recap. Today we have seen what exactly are the virtual machine, that these are the machines which actually provide the image of the actual setup. We can always use the image and the OCR automation, but it has its own challenges and limitation. There is an algorithm which is called the computer vision that enables the human-like recognition of user interface using the mix of AI, OCR, text fuzzy, and the anchoring system. By default, the UiPath OCR is available in the computer vision activities. You have something which is called the CV screen scope, and to work with the scope, you require an API and the URL. We have seen how actually we can get the URL and the API from. At last, we have also seen that there are something which is called anchor, which are used by the CV scope, but as a user, I always has an option to update the anchor. So I would like to wrap this video here. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please do subscribe to the channel, and happy automation.